Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. Thank you for attending today's webinar, The Power of the Gram, How Insight and LG Boost Your Business. Before we begin, I'd like to cover just a few items regarding this webinar platform. At the bottom of your screen, you'll notice a handful of widgets, namely the Q&A widget, which you can utilize to submit any questions you have throughout today's webinar session. For viewing purposes, you can also expand your viewing window by clicking on the icon found on the top right corner of the slide viewer. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the Help widget. And lastly, do take a moment to fill out the survey at the end of the webinar. Thank you. At this time, I'll turn it over to your presenter, Anthony Jimenez.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today. My name is Anthony Jimenez. I'm the product manager for LG here at Insight. From a partnership perspective, Insight and LG have a very tight-knit relationship as Insight is the #2 solution provider in the LG channel. With access to platinum-level pricing, a team of dedicated Insight LG-focused resources, and access to source all of LG's business solutions. On the phone, we have Aaron Addison, our LG product expert, who will be delivering today's message on key features and product lineup for the new 2020 Gram. We will then hear from Joe Flynn, Insight's Director of Connected Workforce Services, who will be speaking on Insight's solution capabilities for modern device management and provisioning services. Before we kick things off, I'd like to announce the winners of the LG PK7 speakers. Tim McGrath from Berry Company, Barry Lucas from American Implement, and Eric Denton from Guidewire Software. Congratulations. I will send each and every one of you an email following up and confirming all info. With that, I'll turn things over to Aaron.
Hello. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, team. Appreciate everybody attending today's webinar. Quick through the slides here. So I'll go into why our customers love the Gram. There's many reasons why. Our innovative sleek technology is one huge factor. Our weight of our product is extremely beneficial to them, and many other things. With the LG brand, we're known as a very cost-effective and highly utilized product. So Gram users tend to fall into these Gram users tend to fall into our higher end category, right? We're in that competition level of Apple products or higher end lightweight ultrabooks. For business users, it could range from CFOs to CEOs, COOs, and then down to the VP level, right? This product doesn't tend to flow so much into the in-office laptop users, more for VP level, highly mobile kind of environment for those users and those workers. Good for creation. The marketing teams use them with 10th gen Iris chips in them. It's a great chipset for graphic design, for streaming content and all that stuff, and music production and things like that. Great for gaming as well, and viewing 4K clips from that content level. Our product lineup is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. We don't overcomplicate it, which is great. We have 4 different flavors, 3 core flavors, and then 1 kind of specialty flavor. We have a 17-inch, 15-inch, and 14-inch. And in those categories, we have an i5, i7 version. Our 17-inch is only i7. Our 15 and 14-inch have i7 and i5 versions. And then we have a 14-inch 2-in-1 that flips into a tent version that then can go into a tablet, which is an i7 as well. The battery lives on these things are 17 to 20 hours. Now, that's recorded in a vacuum. We understand that a lot of the customers in the enterprise space run a lot of applications, but still, given that high application load, these batteries tend to last much longer than our competition. So you could see about a 20-30% drop in the hour viability using those applications. So we're still running a full workday plus from a battery perspective. think this thing has gone a little haywire here. Key features of our grams. One is our 10th gen core processors. The graphic architecture in that is built and designed for high performance, which is great for viewing 4K. Quick application for video filters, and then high resolution photo editing is big. And then 1080p gaming is also key here too, right? So this could fall into many different categories. Essentially, this is good for one user to have multi-use. They could have their professional world and the private world mixed in one, and they can do both. So it's very useful from that perspective. We have a quad extended graphics array. So we have pretty strong 25 by 60 panels on here. So the pixels are great for viewing, and a really crisp and clean display. Full HD resolution. Obviously, you can see larger space, zoom in, and still have not any pixel degradation on that. So strong IPS panel, 16 by 10 aspect ratio, which is great for video editing, doing documents, doing multitasking, things like that, searching on the web. Just standard enterprise level type of activities. Again, the battery capacity is extremely efficient and lasts for quite a while. It ranges from estimated lifespan. That has to do with the screen size, essentially, if you ever get that question. Power wattage is 80 to 72, pretty standard industry-wide. Again, ideal for heavy workloads, heavy applications, and things like that. Lightweight, and super durable. So the hingeless design on that is kind of what you see in the Mac space, right? So that's kind of the look we were going for. That's a highly demanded request, and this kind of fits in that space, right? It ranges from 2.9 pounds down to 2.2 pounds, so it can pretty much go anywhere, do anything at any time. Super thin, super lightweight. One thing you want to remember when you're talking to your customers about this. The durability is mil-spec 810G, which is very high durability, and can withstand all kinds of temperature, pressure, dust buildup. We don't have any fans; these are fanless designed, and then it's very well with vibration. So it can be dropped from certain distances and still work just fine. We have a few people that have experienced that I've been around, and after dropping it, it still works like it did prior to that. So really good. Now, one of the key features that is really notable here, and a lot of our customers enjoy the most, is having the 4-column numeric keypad. So finance departments, people working in Excel all the time, pretty much anybody uses a keypad, the numeric keypad. And this, instead of being on the top row, is on the right-hand side, so it's easier for inputting those numbers and format, and Excel format and things. The sound quality is phenomenal. It's, BTS X Ultra Cinematic sound experience. Great for that rich audio and bass. We have multiple ports here. Thunderbolt is what we decided to go for connections, and also Thunderbolt 3 connection. So it can display up to 5K, which is great, and higher power delivery. And then the data transfer on it is higher than a USB-C, which is good. So that is another. All right, our 2-in-1 laptop. This thing is really neat. We get a lot of great feedback from our customers on it. It's an IPS panel, touch Gorilla Glass, so it's extremely durable. It's a little more heavier than our other units, and that's just because of the way the hinges are designed. And also the glass is a little heavier since it's needs it for durability. Comes with a 10th gen, and then that memory is 16 gigs and 512 of storage. And then the battery life's about 20 hours. Again, that's a vacuum. So after adding workload to it from the enterprise, you're still looking at about 15 to 17 hours. So we get a lot of great feedback from customers on that. Here's the Gorilla Glass. You know, if you haven't heard of Gorilla Glass, I'd be shocked. Corning, it's like their flagship essentially from their glass perspective. Super durable and super responsive to touch. So no degradation there. You can do what you want, and our stylus pendulum that comes with it is ideal for this use. Now I'll turn it over to Joseph here for some insight into Insight.
Thank you, Anthony. And so what we're going to be discussing here is Insight's vision on modern device management provisioning. So one thing to think about is you're getting a great device with the LG Gram. The first thing I noticed when I got the device, and it was about a week ago, it was extremely light, right? It was it's something I would throw in my backpack, take anywhere. But keep in mind, the comment about take anywhere is you have to be able to support that from an organization. So managing that device, giving the user the experience they need from that device, from the moment they receive it, right, into the everyday aspect of that device, you want to give them the great features that it has, but the great experience, consumer-like experience that may get from a mobile device into the laptop world. So as we go through here, right, the legacy model from what most customers do today is and this is the pitfalls of it. It relies on like closed networks. You tend to support a user who's sitting in the office, could have a desktop, could have a brick of a laptop in many cases, right? Mobile devices are usually managed by a whole separate platform, and it's not modern in any way, right? You're dealing with Win32 applications, you're dealing with images, driver packages. How do you manage that going forward? Many images and driver packages tend to be 6 months to maybe 9 months old. So the moment you image that device, a lot of times you still have to update patches or deploy applications after the fact. Doesn't support remote workers. So if we look at what most customers have today in the legacy model, it could be System Center, it could be Altiris, LANdesk. They don't support greatly, right? They don't support remote workers. System Center with the merge into endpoint management Intune, now you have tenant attached, so the remote worker scenarios are coming into play. But if you look at the other technologies like an Altiris, LANdesk, BigFix, they're not remote worker friendly. You are stuck to more of an in-office support model. And then limiting device types. So the legacy model is strictly just a Windows device type. You're not going to bring in the other form factors of devices that are available to your employees. So you're limiting. You're taking away the CYOD, what we see a lot of customers going to, the choose your own device, and you're keeping them in with a specific form factor. And a lot of times, many customers just have a specific device that they standardize on. And at the end of the day, it's a poor user experience. Legacy is IT controlled, IT driven, IT supported. You're not giving the users, again, their choice. You're not giving the users a self-service and the means of doing what they want to do. So as the younger workforce, if we look at the digital natives, the millennials, and even younger at this point, they want to do more of their own. They don't want to communicate with IT and anything in regards to troubleshooting, support, or actually doing anything. Now, if we walk you through the legacy experience, and again, this is a storyline on what we see with many customers. You may have the user in the top left-hand corner. Maybe she needs a new device. Maybe she needs a replacement device. Maybe she's at the end of her device lifecycle and needs a new device from that aspect. Either way, most customers have some internal procurement process where it could go through a service desk. Maybe there's a portal internal to them that they may do. Maybe it's simply sending an email to someone to actually kick off the process. Once that process gets kicked off, they're then going through the purchasing, any management approvals that have to happen. Once that purchasing is done, the device most times is shipping to someone within the service desk in their support desk or desk side support process. Now, keep in mind, key aspect in this slide is look at the guy who's portraying a support desk person. Not very happy, right? He probably has 20 to 30 tickets in his queue. Now he has to take this laptop that he just received and now image it. He's not only imaging it with a third-party solution, but he's also dealing with it from the fact that he's got to do the image, the asset tagging, deploy any apps afterwards, and then he has to worry about the profile. And when we get into the profile, and that's step 9, this is where legacy definitely falls short. If we deal with an on-premise solution from a profile, it's staying secure. right? Because odds are, and we'll walk through that, you're walking over to someone who's sitting at a desk. But if a device is remote, most times what they're doing, they're talking to a user and asking them to reset their password because they have to log into that device before the user gets it. They have no choice. Otherwise, the user would never be able to log into it if they're dealing in the legacy world. So think about that. I'm now asking the user for their password, and I can be a service desk person. Hopefully I'm trustworthy, right? In most organizations, you want your employees to be trustworthy. You never know who's coming in, who's disgruntled one day. And in turn, you don't know the level of resource. What if it's your CIO who needs a new device, who's home, but now you have to get them a device that's tied to the legacy model. And then look at the pain point is the moment I reset that password, now that user has to reset that password on their mobile device to possibly still connect to email. There's a lot of issues with the legacy model in a remote world where many of us are living today. Now, if we follow this journey, we'll follow the top path to a person who's in the office. Again, we're staying secure. Possibly a desk side support person can walk that new device over to the user. And now we look at the desk side support person helps the user log in for the first time, deploys any applications. Keep in mind, many images are outdated with patches. So you got to run Windows updates, you got to install the latest patches, apply any user settings that the user may have, making sure they're up and running with everything they need. It's a more personalized experience, but it's still painful. Now, if we look at the remote on the bottom, now keep in mind, this poor user, she's already reset her password. If she's an existing user, if she's a new user, she's never going to know at that point. But if we look at the existing user model, her password has been reset. Now she gets a device. She logs in with that new password. What happens the first time? She's now going to have to log into VPN, reset her password back to what she wants and no one else knows, and hoping that that reset works and she can log in after she reboots that machine. Most times the issue is going to be the fact that she's calling that same service desk person who's probably imaged her laptop, who's still disgruntled because now she's now a 26th ticket in his queue that he has to help her walk through. Again, to get her settings, to access to where her files are, maybe she's missing files, making sure the password reset works that she can still log in on. Again, not a great experience. The remote worker is probably a horrible experience in many cases. Something to think about. When we look at this, legacy on average takes 22 days. And out of the 22 days, we're estimating 5 to 8 days about OEM shipping. But again, remember I said when that user, the service desk person receives a laptop, their odds are not waiting for that laptop to come in to say, great, let me go image this device. They're probably doing it 2, 3, 4, 5 days later because they're inundated with everyday tasks. And that's where the 22 days comes from. Think about the hours required to update, run Windows Update afterwards on the device. The hours required to manually install applications that may not come down to the imaging process because this specific user needs that. Okay. So keep in mind, there's a lot that happens within that 22 days, which is a lot of pain, poor user experience. Again, a lot of times it's locked into legacy technology. So the device is tied to an Active Directory. It's tied to maybe a System Center, a Big Fix, Altiris, LandDesk, and the likes. This is legacy. This is where many people are today, and they're feeling the pain if they haven't already due to where the remote workers are today, right? We're being forced to work remote. Now the question is, what if we could turn that into a consumer experience, right? This is the art of the possible. Taking what you know from your mobile device. I get a new device, I log in with my username and password, and everything comes down. Great experience from choosing the device all the way to my first login to that device. And the benefit here is if we go to Modernize, we're now increasing security. Not increasing, but maintaining a higher security level. So with this new modern process, right, I have that same lady, same resource. Again, new machine, maybe she needs a replacement machine, maybe it's a warranty. But at this point, she's working through a self-service portal. And with that portal on the top right-hand side, you can see now we have the option of choose your own device, right? Maybe they want this great new LG Gram device that's not on your standards list, but hey, to choose your own device, she can possibly choose this device at that point. And then that portal does all of its automated workflows, right? Not manual workflows in the back end to actually start the process of this device for this user. At that point, the user simply just receives a shipment status. Now, from an Insight perspective as a partner, this is where we can come in because we can have stock on hand for you for that device. And then with our depot, we can then just simply transfer that device to our labs, our integration labs, to actually do what we call autopilot white glove or white glove service on that device, where we're now leveraging the cloud technologies of like an Intune or a Workspace ONE and actually provisioning that device, bringing down the applications from the cloud, all the latest updates and patches from the cloud. We could even go as far as assigning it to a specific user at that time, right? And then when we're done with it, asset tagging, kitting, the device is ready, it's packaged up, we can ship the device directly to a user, whether they're in your office, whether they're home, whether they're traveling and they actually need a device because their one already broke. Think about that. We're skipping IT. We're giving your IT the ability to now work on the tickets or possibly work on forward-thinking activities within your organization. But now when the user receives this device, the login time is secure, right? It's secure and it's in minutes. We didn't have to ask for a password. We didn't inconvenience the user to reset up all their applications with a different password. They're logging in with what they already know for their credentials, usually their email address and password. The setup time is in minutes because our integration labs is handling all of the provisioning of that device from a cloud perspective. We're not worried about an image that has to be updated. We're not worried about applications that may not be set up to be packaged. We're not worried about user settings that may not have come down through the imaging process. That's all handled from a cloud technology. So no matter where the user is, in the office or remote, they can get these applications, they can get these settings sitting in their house. And the good thing about Insight doing our deployment services is what's coming down to that machine the first time the user logs in is just the deltas. Maybe there's a security change that happened. Maybe there's a specific application that was assigned to the user, not the device. If you think about from a golden image approach, it's only the deltas, which in turn the user is getting to the desktop quicker and having a much better experience than if you look at the legacy model where going through a password reset, possibly manually installing applications, running Windows updates. On average, if our depot is involved and we're storing the equipment, it takes about 3 days to do versus the 22 days if we had to order the device through the OEMs, wait for shipping, the shipping time. And this includes the 1 day to ship it directly to the user, the 3 days. So something to keep in mind of the time savings that we're giving you, not only as an organization, but now we can now take your organization, and this is a big organization you see here, right? This organization is what supports legacy. And when we talk about supporting legacy, we're talking about people who support an image, people who support Active Directory, your GPOs, your application packaging. How about people that just support the infrastructure that System Center is on? Like, a lot of organizations are very siloed. They may have people that support the OS, people that support the application, the security aspects of things. And then on the right side, you always have your service desk, whether it's your help desk, desk side support people, you have your asset management people, and the OEM. There's always a crowd, a ton of people that support legacy. And that's why legacy is not efficient as it is with the newest technology today. Now, from a partnership perspective, Insight, we have the ability to help you with the service desk side, right? We can take those calls for you from the moment the user receives that device. Maybe they have questions. We have our supply chain OEM where we can procure the devices for you. We have our depot where we can store stock of these devices. And then we have our deployment where we can now do the autopilot white glove service that Microsoft offers. That's fairly new, right? It's new as of Windows 10 1903, but it allows us to pre-provision that device for the user so they're not doing it on their time. They're getting to being productive much sooner. And then the asset management, all the way from the forward logistics of that device, all the way to the reverse logistics of the device, pulling the device back in, doing the disposal. And then managed services. Managed services around the duration or the life of that device, constantly applying updates to the device, working with you as a customer, right, of what new applications may have to be deployed, providing the analytics of the device, what's going on with it. There's a lot that we can do as a partner to help you. But now the shift from your aspect would be take that crowd of people you saw with legacy and take a lot of them and shift them to more future vision, architecture, strategy. Where should your business go in that regard? It's not worried about the everyday setting up a device, giving it to a user. Is the user happy? Is the user satisfied? Does the user have the right applications? That's something we can handle the day-to-day for you in a more optimized fashion in many ways. Now, if we look at device lifecycle by the numbers, these numbers are based on a lot of the timeframes on Gartner and also the Gartner average price of a resource that usually does this, and all-up cost is estimated at about $105,000 a year. And that's usually salary with benefits and everything else. So if I take a legacy model, and then in these hours do not include the shipping, and that's where you see a tad difference. But if I take the legacy model, on average for forward and reverse logistics, getting the device to the user, and then pulling the device back at the end of the life. So we're talking about disposal, drive wiping, everything like that. We're looking at about $421 per device, dealing with it all in-house, all legacy technologies. From an insight perspective, we can transform you to optimized, right? Where we're leveraging our depot for storage, we're leveraging our labs to do, whether it's still imaging, we can still take your system center imaging, but then do it in our labs in a more efficient process. And then it'll still do the disposals and everything else from a reverse logistics at $190 a device. So we can do it cheaper, and many times we can do it faster because we have groups of people, this is all they do. Now, if we shift to the Modernize, which is to the right side of the slide, we have the automated provisioning, which is just Microsoft Autopilot itself, where the user is doing the provisioning themselves. So the moment the user opens the device, they go through the out-of-box experience, they log in with their work email and work password, all of the applications come down, all of the settings come down, security, encryption, BitLocker, whatever you use at that point, maybe VPN profiles, OneDrive is synchronizing your data. The automated provisioning process is about 18 hours, but keep in mind, the user experience here is still great compared to legacy and optimized, but depending on the user's network, it could take them 1 to 2 to 3 hours to provision that device. Where the white glove aspect is we're taking that time to provision that device in our labs. So when the user gets it, they'll still go through the exact same experience of the initial login. They enter in their email address, username, and password as if it's a brand new device out of the box. But the time to set up, the time to the desktop, the time to be productive is much less because we're doing all that prior in our labs. And the benefit there from a white glove experience is, think about it. You're not maintaining an image. You're not working with us to maintain an image, so it's cheaper in that aspect. We're using cloud technology, so from a security perspective, it's your cloud, it's your setup and configuration. No one needs to know passwords from our side. So, I mean, we're literally plugging a device in, we're using our time, our engineers, to pull all of that information down to the device prior to the user ever getting it. And so there's a ton of efficiencies to go modern, but even a ton of efficiencies to go from legacy optimized to modern. Many customers find they can't go from legacy to modern, directly to modern. It could be a lot of work. You have to transition group policies, your applications. That's why we always tell customers, let us get you from legacy into a more optimized approach. Let's optimize your image, maybe do some scripting, task sequences if you're using System Center, work it into our lab process so it's a lot more efficient. And then in the meantime, we can work with you to help you drive more towards a modernized approach. Now, if we look, what are the benefits of UEM modern management? And a lot of times I use those interchangeably because UEM is still, I think, far out, and this is personally my opinion. UEM is unified endpoint management, right? It's that single pane of glass for everything. But if you look at the popular tools out there, Workspace ONE, Intune, of the likes, they can't do everything today, right? Most of them can't do Chrome. That's handled by Google in itself. A lot of them can't do wearables. They can't do IoT. So when we talk about true UEM, it's still a ways off. But if we look at Workspace ONE and the Intune as a world and what these solutions and packages give you, there's major benefits here. From a user perspective, you're bringing in the mobile experience. You're bringing in what they know if they go to the store and buy a mobile phone, what the experience is upon initial login of the mobile consumer device. You're bringing that to the corporate world. You're bringing that to this awesome LG Gram. Better user experience all up. You have software catalogs or app catalogs that users can do self-service password reset in a secure manner with multi-factor authentication, leveraging facial recognition, right? Leveraging biometrics or Windows Hello on these devices. You're keeping it secure. More diverse hardware choices. Again, different platforms, different device types. You're bringing or expanding the CYOD. You're not locked into many customers. Hey, I have this model for everywhere in my organization. And they have it because it's easy to support, right? It's easy to do the imaging process. They have specific driver packages. Now you don't have to worry about a lot of that with Windows 10 being, and most of these devices being cloud ready. That's all being handled by you by the OS. That's being handled by the cloud in that regard. So now you can expand your choices, but still possibly be more efficient even on the support level of those devices. And again, increase self-service of the user. When I talked about the password reset, adding to groups, to collaboration, you're allowing the user to do more on their own and not having the perception of IT being the bottleneck. Because you all know if the moment that IT is the bottleneck, what's going to happen is users look for shadow IT. They go around IT, find different ways to do it themselves, whether it's applications, processes, other machines that are not, shall I say, domain joined. I mean, we've been there, done that with many customers. Shadow IT is a problem in the industry. And we can talk about where we can go here from a UEM perspective. Now, if you look at it from an IT world, like it's flexible, it's cost effective, because now we can take the same methodology that we manage a mobile device, a Windows 10 device, or an Apple device of the world's. We can pull that methodology together within the same platform, same tool sets. So it drives into the framework. Lower footprint. Depending on how large your organization is, System Center can go from 2, 3 servers, right? And there can be 1 server, but don't get me wrong, it's rare. But in most times, it's probably 10, 15, 20 servers, depending on how large your organization is or how many offices. So look at the lower footprint, the lower cost of hardware, even it could be virtualized, right? You still have AC, you have power, you have the backups you're doing of those devices. You have the licensing from a System Center, SQL, and all that type of stuff. So it's a completely lower footprint and supportability matrix in regards to cost. And that flows into the support savings, but then security is key. Like Gartner, we had a conversation with Gartner, and Gartner said, you can't talk UEM modern management without security. They go hand in hand. And in fact, I can't talk any cloud technology without talking security. It could be collaboration, it could be modern management. Security always has to be in that conversation. But look back to the legacy path I drove you through, and then how I had to ask a user for their password because they're remote. Now, there are ways around it, right? You can inject a VPN and the boot up process, which there's certain VPNs that support it and certain ones that do not. That adds major complexity to the process. That adds means of it breaking and calling the service desk, which in turn, then you're stuck. So there are ways around asking for the password, but the password is definitely the most streamlined, most guaranteed process that the user will be able to log in when they get that device. Evergreen IT. If you shift to modern management UEM, which tend to be more cloud driven, the technology is always moving forward. It's not going to wait for you. It's not waiting for me. It's always pushing forward with new features, new capabilities. So the good thing is you're always going to be able to take advantage of that. You're not stuck to being on-prem. You're not absorbing technical debt because System Center is on 2012, whatever version right at this point, and you don't want to touch it because it's working great. And you're afraid to, but yet there's so many new features. Keep in mind, the longer you keep that on-prem technology and don't maintain it, it's called technical debt, right? It's going to cost you that much more, that much inconvenience to get you to the next level. Going cloud, right? Going to this modern approach, you're automatically going to be getting these new technologies, and it's going to be you to help you figure out how to implement them. How do they benefit your organization? There may be features within these technologies you want to turn off for security or compliance purposes. That's where Evergreen has its pros and cons, but us as a partner, we can work with you to understand where's the technology going. We live with these vendors. If you look at Microsoft, VMware, the likes, and others with these modern management tools, we live these tools. We work with the partner program teams. We work with the product teams to understand where the product is going. What are the pros and cons of these products? So we can help you figure out what's best for your organization, even from a security and compliance standpoint, depending on where your users are and what's required for your business. And then licensing savings. Licensing savings is beneficial from a cloud model in the Microsoft world if we're looking at Office 365, because a lot of times you can get multiple versions of multiple deployments of Office on multiple devices with one license. But if you look at the licensing model, right, it goes more from a CapEx because you're buying licenses every 3 years, you're buying hardware every 3 years. Maybe it's a upgrade process you're doing every 3 years, to where more of now it's an OpEx. The moment you get to the cloud, now you have a budgeted monthly price for the licensing, for those technologies, for the tools. You're not worried about every 3, 4, or 5 years, I have to do an upgrade to maintain and keep up to date. So long term, you will see those savings come down from a licensing perspective and a reoccurring update perspective. Now, if we look at modern management and security, there's 3 aspects that we have to drive here and to maintain security. One is we always protect at the door. We protect the identity. We protect the multi-factor authentication, right? Cutting back a lot of what they have in regards to allowing users to get hacked, allowing users' passwords to get shared. So something in regards to that is at the door is the most important piece. Okay, if I give you my device, I could have multi-factor turned on. I could have passwordless turned on, tied to my mobile device that's always on me. My mobile device is set to force a password and a PIN. I can hand you my password. You still would not be able to log in. Something to keep in mind. You can take my laptop from me, right? And you still wouldn't be able to log in because it can be tied to multi-factor authentication, tied to Windows Hello. So protecting that login, protecting the identity is key. Next is we shift to the right, is now protecting the data. Okay, identity and now the data. There's tools out there, if you look at like Azure Information Protection, where we can classify data. We could even tag data without classifying it. And even if it's tagged, it allows you to always report on where is your data, right? And at any time, once it's tagged, you have the access to pull the data back. Like, so I can tag everything in my company as public. Everyone can see it. They can send it out, do whatever they want. The benefit, again, I can run a report on where is this data. And let's say something happens in regards to that data, I can right away change that data from public to possibly confidential. And then no one can read that data, because once it's tagged, it will always check in when it's opened and determine what its permission levels are. So protecting your data is important, because again, even if I gave you my machine and you miraculously were able to crack into it, if I'm categorizing it, classifying it from a cloud level, in that regards for like Azure Information Protection, I can still now pull the data back, even though you may have access to the machine, which is going to be pretty rare in that instance. And then last is detect and remediate attacks. So it's taking the tools of like a Microsoft Defender, Defender ATP, leveraging the cloud machine learning, the cloud automated remediation tasks on what happens on that machine, but now automatically remediating it, not relying on a person to determine what to do. Remediating it quickly before it actually expands within your company. So these are key things we always talk about, is always protect the identity and always protect your data. Because at the end of the day, right, I can give you multiple devices to use. I can give you, your device breaks, I'll give you a new device, you log in, all your data comes down, your applications come down, very consumer-like experience like the mobile world. But the benefit is as long as I know your identity is protected and your data is protected, I'm pretty satisfied, because there's still some security I can do on the device around security, encryption on the device and things like that. But at the end of the day, if the data is allowed to get sent out through email, if the data is allowed to be put on a USB key that nobody knows about, as secure as that device is, it's not going to matter, right? Because your data is now going out other ways, other means. Or if your password users get hacked or phished. Keep in mind, phishing is still the #1 cause of many attacks on users. And if a user has a simple password or they're not aware of phishing, think about how many times you could be opening the door for someone just simply getting an email, clicking on it, typing in their credentials. Now that same user, if I enable them simply for multi-factor authentication, I can have them saying that same phishing attack. And then granted, they'll be putting in their credentials and someone will capture it. But then once multi-factor happens, whoever has that password still can't get past the multi-factor authentication. So again, protect at the door, protect your data, and then leverage the tools of the integrations for the detect and remediate attacks. Now, just to summarize up, like the modern management itself, most modern management tools are going to be cloud hosted. They have capabilities of putting on-prem distribution points, but we always push customers away from going on-prem if they don't have to. Integrated with cloud applications. So if you look at the Workspace ONE, has their Workspace ONE hub. Workspace ONE now has Carbon Black. It's leveraging the analytics. If you look at Intune with Microsoft's EMS platform, I can now integrate, like you see some of the icons on the screen, cloud app security, Azure Information Protection, identity protection, Defender ATP. All of these tools, especially from a Microsoft perspective, it's a win for them because they all integrate nicely. I can go from a conditional access standpoint where I can say, hey, if this device is sitting in the office and the user is trying to access this application, since I'm on a trusted network, it won't prompt for multi-factor authentication, okay? It sees that I'm on a trusted device, I'm on a trusted network, I'm trusted to go access the data. On the flip side, I take that same device and now I leave the company and I'm logging in from a Starbucks. That same conditional access policy and say, okay, great, it's a trusted device, the user's authenticated, but now the user is not on a network that I'm aware of. It's not a trusted network. So I'm going to force that user to do multi-factor authentication to get into this application or access the data. So the conditional access of and Defender ATP on where the device is, how the user is logging in, what precautions do I want to take depending on where the user is and that device is, it's phenomenal. I mean, I cannot speak highly enough about these technologies and what can be done. So depending on how easy you want to make it for your users or how far you want to take it and still give your users the flexibility to do more themselves, the capability is here. That's the whole point of this whole modern management play, is the capability is here to give the consumer-like experience, but for IT to still maintain the control to make them feel comfortable from a security and a supportability standpoint. Lastly, modern management is definitely more efficient. I think I've shown that in the story initially on from legacy. Cost-effective or more predictive cost, because now you're leveraging a monthly cloud-based modeling than an on-prem based approach where you know you're going to have to buy up every so many years to do upgrades. It's more secure. Just look at from the legacy to the modern model, process, provisioning process I showed you. No longer needing passwords, right? No, making sure the devices are always up to date the moment the user gets them. Legacy is not as secure. It's impossible for it to be as secure, just with a lot of the processes that people have to go through. It's up to date. Like modern management is always up to date. If you're leveraging cloud technology, you're not slowing it down. Whether that's modern management from a device perspective, whether you're looking at a cloud perspective from the productivity suites like Office 365, you are not slowing down once you go cloud. So something to keep in mind. And overall, it's a better end user experience for your users. I can't say it enough. You're giving what users have been begging for, that consumer-like experience. Possibly, depending on your organization, you may open up CYOD, choose your own device. But you're giving the users an overall better experience. And especially, I can't express enough, is leverage the cloud for everything it can give you, especially if you're buying the licensing. Move your user shares into the cloud for OneDrive. Now the user can access that data anywhere. But now it gives you the ability to classify the data, right? To lock the data down, to wrap controls on how they access that data and from where. But the best part is I can do redirection from a device perspective, that anything they save on that device gets redirected to OneDrive. So again, if that device breaks and they need a new device similar to your mobile, all that data is coming back down automatically for the user. They have access to it at all the time. So the user experience from up to a modern, especially from, is a night and day difference. Now I'm going to hand it back to Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I will turn it over to Aaron for closing summary remarks and some LG reminders on the Gram. Aaron?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. That was wonderful insight into Insight. So the major takeaway that I want to leave with everybody is really that it's about the modern workspace, right? And the modern workspace is mobile. And having an ultra lightweight, cost-effective laptop with the industry's best user experience is what all those users want, right? Joe mentioned it with having a consumer environment feel for the business world. So that's kind of what LG has done here. We've developed products for that modern user with that thinking. And some other small little things that can help push your customers over the edge, which are big, but it's, again, the lightweight form factor feel. The 4-column keyboard is key with a lot of users. And also, Joe mentioned about the shadow IT, right? This device, with its form factor, its sleek design, its feel, its weight, will allow users not to go to that shadow IT to use other devices. They will want to use this device anywhere, anyhow, at any time they can. So please keep us in mind anytime you are talking to your customers about new laptops. We're stocking actively right now, and we've got many available to ship. So now I'll turn it over to questions for anybody. So if you have any questions, let us know, or I believe Maggie will give those out to us, and we can answer them.
Thanks, Aaron. That concludes today's webinar. A big thank you to the presentation team today and to the attendees. Thank you for your time and opportunity to come together. With that, we'll turn you back to your day. Thank you.